Hello guys, my name is Chow902. This will be another deck profile on this channel. Make sure to check out the other ones if you have a chance. Today we'll be covering ghostricks. And in essence, all ghostricks are is just a stun deck. And stun decks is a whole idea of decks where it just slows down your opponent to allow you to get the advantage. Now before we talk about all these monsters, what's important that we cover is the most important card in this deck, which are the field spells. Ghostrick Parade, Ghostrick Museum, and I am missing Ghostrick Mansion, which I recommend you pick up. There are a few cards I'm missing in this deck, but no need to fear, I have most of it ready to go.
And how many copies of these field spell cards are recommended, or you would recommend to have in this deck?
Well, what I like to do right now, because I didn't feel like ordering any cards yet, you can either run like 3 Ghostrick Museums or 3 Ghostrick Parades. But I wouldn't recommend running just like 3 Ghostrick Parades, but that's for other reasons.
And how about the Mansion?
Mansion, I recommend you just run on one of those. What I'm planning on doing is running one of this, and then 1 Ghostrick Mansion. And what does this card do, right? Pretty much, if all your opponent's monster cards are face down, you can attack directly, but for certain effects, like help ghostricks, right? For a Ghostrick Parade, if your opponent attacks me directly, I gotta add a Ghostrick monster from my deck to my hand. Or Ghostrick Mansion, or the damage is halved, but if a Ghostrick monster is attacking, the damage isn't halved, right? And that's very important. You need this card for this deck to function properly, because there's no way you're gonna win unless you have these cards on the field. But let's get into the monsters, and you'll see why. First of all, I recommend you run these cards: Ghostrick Jack Frost and Ghostrick Spectre. Ghostrick Jack Frost, what he does is, as long as he's in your hand, when your opponent attacks you directly, you reveal this card, you special summon it to the field face down, and then you flip your opponent's monster in face down defense position. And Ghostrick Spectre does the same thing, except it's when one of your monsters are attacked. And I forgot to mention, all Ghostrick monsters in the face have the same effect, which is they can flip themselves back face down defense position once per turn. And that's very important for this deck,
because a lot of these monsters have flip effects.
Yes.
So by allowing themselves to be being able to be flipped down, you can flip them right back up and continuously activate their effects.
Now, I run 1 Ghostrick Skeleton. You don't need to run this guy. He's kind of just to screw with your opponent a little bit. Pretty much when he flip summons, you count how many Ghostrick monsters you have on the field, and for how many, your opponent has to banish the top cards in your deck equal to the amount of monsters you have on the field. It's alright, it's not bad.
So and the grand total is that your opponent would have to banish 5 cards from their deck. So it can be pretty handy.
This card just has a good amount of defense, and it stops itself from being destroyed a lot of the time. It's fun, nice to have. And we have a Ghostrick Mummy. I'm not going to go into his effect. We have a Ghostrick Yugioh Arena, and then a Ghostrick, I don't even know how to pronounce it, to be honest with you. But these are all necessary cards. They're all nice to have. And if you notice, they're all the same level. This deck really revolves around XYZ summons, and that's how you get your big monsters on the field.
So you can see level 1s, 3s, and I'm pretty sure I don't see a level 4, so
there are hardly any level 4s in this deck, because it's all level 3s and 2s. Pretty much all. It's funny, most of the level 2 rank 2 XYZs and level rank 3s come from Ghostricks, I notice. Now let's talk about some of the trap cards that the deck has in support. We have a Ghostrick Vanish, a Ghostrick Roundup, and a Ghostrick Scare. Pretty much Ghostrick Vanish, all it does really is stopping one of your monsters from being destroyed that's face down. Ghostrick Roundup helps slow down your opponent, and Ghostrick Scare helps this card helps you win for game, pretty much is what that card does. Now, I remember I said about this field spell, if your opponent has all their monsters face down, you can attack directly. That's pretty much all these field spells do that.
And that's important to say, because while these cards lack in attacking power, if you have them out on the field, regardless, you're going to be doing massive damage to your opponent's life points. So as long as you can keep your opponent's monsters face down and you have that field spell card out there, you can pretty much win the duel in, what, maybe 2-3 turns?
Yeah, you just keep on smacking them in the face because all their monsters are face down, so they can't do anything.
So even, like I said, even though they're not great for attack power, all that damage does add up eventually.
But they may not be great at attack power, but this card can be great in attack power because he gains attack power equal to how many Ghost Tricks are on the field. So this guy can get 3,000 attack upwards. So he's the guy you're going to use to push for game a lot. You definitely need one. I recommend 1 copy or 2 copies of him. What you really need is all these cards. You need a lot of these bad boys because they can switch summon themselves to the field. Ghostrick Doll and Ghostrick Yugioh.
So perhaps what you're saying is that you should run 2 to 3 copies of these cards now.
All of them.
Of all of them. Okay.
Yeah. And I recommend you run a Swords of Concealing Light, two swords of 2 or 3, because it just helps push for game.
And are there any combos that you can do with that card?
Yes, actually, because this card, now people don't really talk about Tragedy that much, but what caught my eye was the artwork. It's a really cool looking artwork. I like the artwork.
And just a little of knowledge here and there. Fun fact: this is not the original artwork. The original artwork was a picture of a guillotine, but for whatever reason, people thought it was offensive, so they decided to switch it to this less offensive artwork, which I think is much worse than the guillotine.
I gotta be honest with you. This is, man, I don't know how this is less offensive, but it's a really cool looking card.
I digress, yes.
But what's good about it is when your opponent switches a monster to defense mode, or when a monster switches to defense mode,
face down defense mode.
Face down defense mode.
You destroy it.
You destroy all face down defense positions. So you activate Swords of Concealing Light, and then you activate Tragedy. Boom! Your opponent has no more monsters.
So if they have a level, a full field, you activate Swords of Concealing Light, flip them face down, then immediately activate Tragedy. Bam! You just nuke the field.
Yeah, and then Ghostrick Stein's just helpful. He's just a good old level 3 to help push for a game. He has a good amount of damage, and then he helps you to get your field spells. Now, let's talk about the really important cards, which are these XYZs, right? Now, sadly, I am missing a lot of the important XYZs, but you really need these XYZs. There's one I'm missing in particular called Ghostrick Arcana. You really need him for this deck. I haven't ordered them yet, but I will for sure.
And how many copies?
You need 3 copies of Ghostrick Arcana. I recommend 2 copies or 1 copy of Ghostrick Mischief. I just have 2 copies because I had them. And then I recommend 2 to 3 copies of Ghostrick Succubus. And these guys I just have there for space because they match with the deck. And they have, they have the right numbers. So
as you can see, level 3 and a level 2.
Yeah, so they fit with the deck perfectly. But they're not necessary by any means. What you really need is the Ghostrick cards that come with it. Now, Ghostrick Succubus is helpful because she closes off. She's kind of almost like a floodgate almost because she stops your opponent from being able to summon monsters pretty much. And then Angel of Mischief is just helpful to have on the field, but she's level 4, so it's not as good. And just for fun, I have these cards just to help the deck like have a little bit more beef to it. Moisture Creature, just because he's alright, I guess. He just destroys spells and stuff. But what I really recommend you have, which I don't see many people run, but I think you should, is Dark Necrofear. Now what he does is that you have to banish 3 fiends from your graveyard, but that's okay because you have fiends in this deck. And then you summon him to the field, and when he's destroyed by your opponent's monster cards or card effects, he can take one of your opponent's monsters as an equip card. Now that's really helpful. I've always wanted to run Dark Necrofear in a deck because I like the artwork, but I never had a place to fit them in, and it works perfectly. I recommend you run 1 to 2 because you don't have that many cards to banish in this deck, but it could still work pretty well. Now, my overall rating for this deck is probably like a 7 or an 8. It kind of just depends on how quickly you can stop your opponent, but if you're going against like a Blue Eyes deck, that Blue Eyes deck will just punch straight through your defenses. Now, what's your take on this?
It's an interesting deck. It's a very, in my opinion, trolly deck.
It is very trolly.
So because once this deck picks up steam, it's pretty hard to stop.
Yeah, it is very hard to stop, but I love the artwork for this deck.
Yeah, they're it may sound weird, but there are cute monsters up in here, cute artwork.
Yeah, not really intimidating, but they can really put in some work. But yeah, like a 7 out of 10. It's all right.
I can agree with that.
It's an alright deck. It's not gonna destroy the competition. And the duels are pretty long and annoying for your opponent because you can't kill your opponent that quickly.
Yeah.
And I also recommend, these are all the spells and traps you run.
So for these, you got leniency. You can add and take out as you see fit, but this is just what Heat runs.
Yeah, that's just what I run. I will recommend you use a tragedy though. Foolish Burial can be kind of helpful. You know, MSTs, just the regular stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This is all pretty much, this whole stack right here is just
Optional, except for tragedy, of course.
Of course, you know, I mean, you know, it's kind of optional. Book of Moon, I recommend you run this just to help keeping your enemy opponent's monsters face down, but this is not necessary by any means. I kind of put Book of Moon in there just because I needed 40 cards. And this deck is like right on the 40 barrier. So that's a good thing that it's like right there. It, you know, you fill up the minimum pretty well. It's not like you have to choose like really much what you really want in this deck, but I think it's an alright deck. I think this is gonna be what we're using for the next duel, correct?
Yes, because I finally managed to put down Persona 5 and Nier Automata long enough to find the cards that I need to complete my LV deck. So for our next video, the long-awaited deck review of my LV deck. So look forward to that.
Alright, see ya.
Peace.